This week on Business Mike, the business of expression. My guest today is Alex Okoroji. She's a Nigerian actress, writer, TV personality, podcaster, and self-help mentor. In today's show, Alex shares her inspiration for starting the Naked movement, which inspires people to accept their vulnerability, imperfection, and flaws for building more awareness and genuine transformation. All this and more next on Business Mike.
You're listening to the Business Mike podcast. Amazing interviews with inspiring entrepreneurs. For more amazing interviews, go to www.businessmike.com or download our podcast every Monday from Pod Africa.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Business Mike. My name is Daudi Mugabi and joining me today is Alex Okoroji. Alex, welcome to the show.
Hi, Daudi. Thank you so much for inviting me to be on your show. I am so excited to be coming to you all the way from Lagos in Nigeria. Thank you so much for being so amazing.
Right. And for those that don't know about your work, can you just let us know a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Well, I am an actress and I am a writer, a talk radio host, a speaker, an author, and so many things. I don't know. I'm a mom. But, it gets very uncomfortable for me when I have to reel out all this different things. It kind of feels like show off in a sense. But the truth is, most people refer to me as a media personality and some, as a creative, but I actually refer to myself as an expressionist, and I use that word because I just kind of feel like everything I do is really about expressing myself and, advocating expression and using that as a medium or using different mediums of the art really to empower people to live their best, live their authentic best. And that's really what I do. So whether it's in front of the camera as an actor or on radio, talking and speaking with others or, through my writing, I just use all these different platforms to empower people, really.
Right. Now, you're a podcaster. You have a podcast show called The Naked Talk. I must point out that this is the second time we're recording this actual episode. Earlier on, we had a problem with the network. And it's given me an opportunity to ask this question now about podcasting. What experience did you have? Was there a guest you had on your show or something that you experienced through the podcast that made you appreciate this medium of communication?
Well, yeah, every time as a host, every time I speak to someone, there is always something special about it. For me, I don't always feel like each conversation is the same. All conversations are different because first of all, you're meeting different people. And, podcasting is such a great medium to connect with, people and share in their story and their journey and also share in their expertise and, gain a lot of information that is valuable to you as the host, but also valuable to your listeners and, build some sort of a relationship or connection. But there's some people that I have connected with and I'm thinking, oh my goodness, if not for podcasting, how would I have met them, right? You think it's such a great medium. And even at that, just being able to do it from Africa. We do have, that is, I think, probably one of the biggest highlights, the fact that you're hosting a show from Africa and you can reach people from around the world. A lot of influencers and experts and stuff like that, but also having to manage technical issues, that is a reality. We can't avoid that. We're in Africa. And technology is still, example, the internet, right? It's still a luxury in a sense. And so I remember having one show like that where I had this British rock singer on my show. And because it's a live show, we kept going off and on and on and oh my God, it was frustrating. But for me, it was still, I think it was an exercise and challenge, actually. It was an exercise and challenge. And he was surprised that we still pulled the show. Because it got to the point where I was like, I'm almost saying, maybe we should do this some other time. But we still did. And he was so surprised, but proud. And it was one of those shows where technically, there was all that breaks and stuff, but because I call it the Naked Talk, I like to I didn't edit it out because I like my show being unscripted, right? So I feel like it takes away the natural flavor of the realness of it. When you now cover it up and all of that, and it's no longer, it's now what, but I like that. And I put it out there and told everybody, you know what? It's not technically great, but I loved talking to this person. So yes, there are people that, you speak to in parts of the world that you yourself haven't been to. And people who are doing things that you can't even believe, like amazing things, or who have been through amazing challenges that you can't even imagine yourself. I had a blind blogger on my show, and oh, that's great. Yeah, that's one I can talk about. I've had a blind blogger on my show. He's known as a blind blogger, and he's the author of 2 books, and he's a speaker, and he's just a super amazing person. But you said something about podcasting. How would I have met a blind blogger somewhere in Texas if I didn't have that medium? But just the ability that he can do what he's doing and not allow the fact that he can't see. That's hard. I mean, as a writer, you want to see what you're writing, right? But you run a blog and you're the author of 2 books. But then there are people who have their sites who want to do those things, but have so many excuses why they can't do it. But here's a person who has the number one excuse that can stop him from writing a book or stop him from running a blog, who isn't allowing that excuse stop him. I think those are some of the beautiful moments that you realize when you connect to people like that.
Now, you have obviously your talk show called The Naked Talk, as well as a book out called The Naked Truth. Both have the word naked in there. So what is the meaning of naked?
Well, I've somehow in the last 2 years, I've created a naked brand, from so many different things. But naked really is about revealing, right? It's, kind of a revelation of truth in a sense. It's revealing who you really are. Stripping down the lies and the cover-ups and limiting beliefs and presenting yourself just the way you are. Not being afraid to be vulnerable, not being afraid to be honest, not being afraid to be transparent, not being afraid to allow people in the world to see who you really are. And when I say that, it could be so many things. It might just be your truth. It might be authenticity. It might be able to build trust, but it might also be able to reveal the shine that you have that has been covered by the piles of the negatives, the no's, you're not going to do well, and all those things that you've been fed with growing up. And all the excuses, right? So in the natural sense, when you think of the word naked, you're thinking stripped, bare, revealing, no barriers, no cover-ups, no lies. And that's what it is. And I held into that philosophy really after my own personal challenge, having been, I got married, and I was married to another actor from another West African country, from Ghana, and that marriage not going, it didn't work out. It failed. I moved back with my child, and having to figure out how to restart my life, as an actress who couldn't start booking jobs anymore because there are new faces in the, it was just, how was I going to reconnect to my old life? I put on a little bit of weight. I wasn't as skinny as I used to be, and some people like it, but the thing is, there was change in so many ways, and how was I going to adapt to that change? I needed to have the real talk with myself. I needed to tell myself the truth, tell myself where my weaknesses are and what my flaws are and my imperfections are, and accept them and embrace them and maybe use them as a tool to get the things that I want. So for me, being naked is really being able to accept those flaws and weaknesses and understand that perfection is a myth, and that's what I've built a brand around. So it started with the blog, Alexandra and Her Naked Thoughts, and, I started journaling to go through my trying moments. I couldn't share the truth. I couldn't tell anybody what was going on with me because I was worried about the media. The media was writing stuff, and there's that perception that actors don't keep their marriages, and there's all that judgment going. And so the only person I could trust at the time was myself. So I started journaling, and I was writing my thoughts and my feelings, and that gave birth to me one day being bold. And I think that's what naked is as well, being bold and being brave. And I put it out there, I put it on Facebook, and people started reading, commenting, and going, "You're so courageous, you're so this, you're so that." And it got to the point where someone said, you need to start a blog. If you don't do it, I'm going to block you. And so I went ahead to start that blog, and that blog gave birth to the radio show, which is pretty much taking the philosophy, but put it on a medium where people can hear, because not everybody reads, right? So that, gave birth to the blog, and then to webinars and to all the other things, from the book to the radio there's just so much naked stuff going around. So really, that's how it came about. Challenge, so you find the best things during your challenging times.
Right. Now, earlier on, you mentioned the blind blogger. Now, even yourself, you're really busting all the myths and excuses that people might have, because you're a single mother and you have a podcast, you've written a book, you have a movement going on. So how on earth do you manage to do all these things and remain sane?
Dowdy, honestly, I don't know. Okay, that's And you know what? The truth is, when people ask me that, and I hear that all the time, I mean, how do you do all this? They say, you're so busy. Sometimes I barely sleep. I sleep like 3 hours or 4 hours a day. It's not so great for me, but I love it. And here's how you manage to do things. When you're doing something you really love, there's that saying that you never have to work a day in your life, right? Okay, we know realistically that's not true. You really have to work to gain anything you have. But the thing is that it doesn't feel like stress, because you're doing something that feels natural to you. You're doing something that is your purpose, and you're doing something that is your calling. It's a gift. So if I was doing something that I didn't like or I wasn't enjoying, then I would be so stressed out. But because I'm doing things that feel very second nature to me, it doesn't really feel like stress. It feels like I'm having a good time. I'm living my life. They're part of me. It's like I feel like I'm no longer complete without all these different compartments and elements. They are what actually makes me Alex Okoroji in a sense. So that's how I manage it, knowing that you have to do what you have to do. You have to show up. That's it. Like, you have no excuses, You either want to influence and impact the world like you say you want to, and do all the things that will help you achieve that, or don't bother. So that's it. I just show up. I do what I have to do, and I enjoy doing it.
Right now, obviously, you're living the life that you wanted to live. You're living your purpose and, following your true calling. And you mentioned that you have so many talents. There's so many people out there who are trying to find their true calling, and perhaps they're doing something they're good at, but it's not necessarily something that they are meant to be doing. So from your experience, how can you advise or guide people that are trying to find their true purpose in life? How can they find that North Star, so to speak?
Well, I mean, these things are really, first of all, how does it make you feel? Right. How does it make you feel? How does what you're doing make you feel? If it feels like stress, if it feels like it's too much of an effort, then it probably isn't your purpose. Like, that's it. Like, it comes down to that. If it feels like it's, how I said to someone that, how you can find peace in chaos? Like, even when nothing is perfect, or it's not the perfect scenario or the perfect circumstances, but because you love what you're doing, it just feels right. Right? So if what you're doing if it doesn't feel right, like if it feels like it's too much of an effort, it's too much work, you're constantly complaining, then it's not what you're called for. Maybe it's what you're paid for, but it's not what you're called for. So you have to find what you're called for, because if you wake me up at 2 a.m. and tell me I have to do a show, or if you wake me up at 2 a.m. and tell me I need to be somewhere that I feel I would be, like, because it's what I love doing, right? But if you called me at 2 a.m. for something I don't, I'm going to, like, why would you, like, I would feel like, you're so inconsiderate, and I would feel frustrated. But when I'm doing something that I can wake up anytime, I can stay up anytime, I can do whatever I need to do because it's something that I love. So the 3 questions I would say: how does it make you feel? Do you feel stressed out? If you feel stressed out, then it probably isn't something that you're made for. How do you feel about it? What impact is it? Because another thing is about impact. Is it providing solution? You have to ask yourself, and that's the truth, because when we're doing something that is tied to our purpose, it means that it has to add value to somebody else out there. Is it adding value to just you and nobody else out there? Those are the 2 things I ask myself, this thing I'm going to do, how does it add value to someone other than me? Right? So, with your purpose, if you're comfortable with something, it would feel good all around, even when it's not working, even on bad days, even when the money isn't coming in, or even when the technology is acting up, or even when whatever is happening, it still feels right, because it's what you're made for.
Right. And I think another way of answering that question could be, if you had all the money in the world and you had shelter and you had food, what would you be doing? The one thing you don't need to be paid to be doing every day. That probably would be the answer to that question.
Exactly. And that's true. You're very correct. You put it aptly. Like, really, what else would you be doing? If you stripped down all of those things and you took them away, or what else would you be doing, really? What would you rather be doing? And that's it, really. You're correct. I agree 100% with you.
Right. Now, I just want to touch on your book, The Naked Truth. You shared a story with us of what inspired you to start the Naked movement. But what about the book itself? What's it about, and what was the inspiration behind it?
Well, I mean, the book really came from me writing The Naked Truth. Really came from me wanting to call a bit of awareness to people. I found out that a lot of us, living in a society that expects perfection, right? A society that creates a standard that is almost unrealistic in a sense. And so many people not living their truth in a sense, right? Because we're constantly lying to ourselves and we're constantly seeking perfection instead of excellence. We are unaware, or we, somehow diminish the fact that we're all flawed and we all have weaknesses and we all have challenges. But how do we embrace those things and use those challenges as a stepping board to get to where we need to go? And so, the Naked Truth was really highlighting, truths in career, in love, in life, in sex, and in reinvention of self, that we all have to, and the only way you can reinvent yourself and accept and embrace embrace change is by accepting challenges, right? So the Naked Truth was having that real talk, and I use myself as a personal example. I knew at a point in my relationship that relationship wasn't going to work, right? But somehow, because everybody thought we looked good together, because there's this society expectation of, oh, you guys look so great together. You sort of drowned the signs and you closed your eyes to the signs that were there, that you knew for certain that this thing wasn't going to work, but somehow you sort of turned a blind eye to those things because, well, you wanted to fit the expectations the society had of me, of us, in a sense. And it's like you're driving a car and you have a flat tire, but somehow you're telling yourself that flat tire is going to get you to where you're going. Rather than change, you're running on hope. It's what we all do. Like, rather than accept that truth and tell yourself the honest truth, like if you're naked, and that's where it comes from. You know how you can powder up and you can make up and you can cover up and you can put layers and layers and layers of clothes. But when and I use this, when you go into your own space, or you go into the bathroom and you're faced with the real nakedness, your real truth, no amount of water or whatever it is can wash off those scars or that is your truth. And so if we all at every point in our lives tell ourselves the truth about, our career, like, this thing I'm doing, is this something that I really enjoy? Why don't I try something that I love? Like, lots of times people will start something, for example, a business, a vision that isn't theirs. Like, it's a borrowed vision because everybody else is doing it. I want to do it too. Is it going to work for you? Is it something you love doing? 2 years from now, what if you're not making profit? Like, how honest are you with yourself? A relationship, ask yourself, is this the person I want to be with? Or am I being good enough for this person? What are my flaws and my weaknesses? What can I live with? What can I not live with? Like, I feel like we don't have those conversations because we live in a society where people want to make up, people want to powder up, people want to be what people expect of them and not who they really are. So that's where the book came from.
Yeah, and just to add to that, I think the worst thing as an individual that you can do is to tell yourself a lie and actually believe it. That's really, really dangerous.
And there's so many people who are doing that. Like, so many people who believe, their own lie. And I say, you can lie to everybody, but not yourself. So, but there are people who actually really do tell themselves, I'm this. And they believe it, like, oh yeah, I can sing, but you probably can't even hold a note. But then somehow they've bought into that, and it's what stops them, from just getting to where they really need to go to. Nobody's perfect. I looked at myself and say, okay, let me give you an example. I'm sure your listeners can probably tell I'm a talker. I talk a lot. Right? They can tell that. And that could have been something that, while I was growing up, that was something that seemed like a flaw. Like, oh, she's chirpy, she talks, yeah, Miss Talker, talkative, talker, all those kind of things that people say, and then you really think it's negative. But how did I now turn that, in a sense, to be something that has become positive for me? Okay, so talker, and talker becomes queen of talk, in a sense, right? So how about I host my own show and I can talk for as long as I want to and use that talking or that gift of gab, in a sense, to bless other people and influencers. So again, you can look at your flaws and challenges and say, I may not be good at this thing, but how can I turn that thing that looks like a flaw to something that becomes something I can use to grow?
Right, and I just want to supplement what you've said with a business example. There was a bar somewhere in the US that was located around a drawbridge of ships and boats. So the disadvantage it was that when people are in the bar, almost every 30 minutes when the ship is passing by, there's this loud bell that would sound and it would disrupt everything happening in the bar. So people looked at that as a negative thing, but just like you said, the bar somehow managed to spin that around. So what they did is they put a signpost at the entrance and said, every time the bell rings, the drinks are at half price. So now people look forward to the bell ring. It's no longer an inconvenience. It's something they look forward to. And that's an example of how you can turn a weakness or a negative thing into something positive.
You just said that right, and that is so brilliant. I'll give you an example. I'm hanging out right now at an entertainers retreat somewhere in the outskirts of Lagos, like with other entertainers, actors, and musicians and all. And where we are is this beautiful, fantastic place called Holmesworth. But here's the funny thing. The first time I got there, it was in the outskirts, like totally out of, the main city and all of that. And you're saying, oh my God, I wish it wasn't so far. But I said to them, hey, yes, it looks like it's so far because it's not central. It's not in the hub, where the commercial hub of the town. But you know what? That could be your selling points. The fact that people want to go away. If you want to get away, you want to go away from the, from the noise and the hustle, and that's where to go to. So I've learned how to use my weakness as something that becomes my USP, like my selling point in a sense, I remember I say something, now let's even say this as a podcaster. One of the tips or the tricks that I use, or not tricks, but tips that I use to book guests on my show is when I, if I send it, most times now I get pitches actually, but when I first started and I sent pitches to someone I think is fascinating, I want to have them as a guest on my show. And I would go, I would like to have you on my show. I'm a podcast host in Africa. And if you'd like to connect your message and your product to people in Africa, right? The catch is, I'm in Africa. And the average international person or foreigner doesn't have an audience in Africa, right? Even as a guest on other shows, it's more like if you want an international guest, well, I'm great. The point is, what could have seemed like, okay, you're in Nigeria, who could possibly, like some of these people don't have any contact with anybody in Nigeria or had never really had any relationship with anyone in Nigeria. But you're using that as a catch because they don't, and they're looking forward to that. And so for the average African who feels like, you need to migrate, you need to leave there, you need to do this to be able to create impact. You can actually create impact from anywhere you are. Just do it from your space, in that little corner where you are, and find out how to use that little thing that seems like might be a flaw to be something that totally, puts you out there. So everyone wants to go because, well, I've never been on a show in Africa. I'd like to be on her show. So it might seem like like a very diminutive, whatever, being an African because they've been on top podcasts on iTunes and stuff like that. But hey, how many of them have been on the show in Africa? So that is a plus, so.
This is the final question. If you were cast away to a desert island and you could only take one of each, what book would you take with you? What movie would you take with you? And what song?
Oh my God, Dowdy. I've never been so, oh my goodness. This is really, oh my God. Oh God, this is weird. Can I, if I were to take one book and one song, it's so weird because you're asking the person who reads like how many books a month and how many songs. Like every song is my favorite song. Like every song is my favorite song. Every book is it's weird. Okay, you know what? Can I take an iPad with internet so I can have everything? That would be, so I can, I would say, okay, let me take an iPad instead with the internet so I can have every book and music and whatever I want. Would that pass?
There's the internet connection on the island.
Okay, well, there may not be internet connection on the island, so I can have an iPad with, all the books I want downloaded and music and everything. That's weird. That's my Igbo sense. I come from a part in Nigeria where they say they have Igbo sense. That's my Igbo sense. Like, I don't want one book and on one time. Well, okay, let me be serious. One book. Dowdy, that's.
Or let me phrase it another way. What book would you gift someone if, say, you have a loved one and you're trying to give them one book, one movie, and a song maybe that you'd like to dedicate to them? What would that be?
Okay, no, I know the book that I would give. If I were to give someone, I would give a book by a friend of mine, Nina Binker, and it's called Once the Storm is Over. I would give her that book, Once the Storm is Over. It's a true story. It's based on a true story, but I feel like everything that she navigated can help somebody navigate their own life. Her own teenage daughter committed suicide her teenage daughter committed suicide, and that book was written right after that. So, it helps you deal with loss and challenges. Her daughter had mental health issues. That would be the book that I would say to someone to have once the storm is over, by Nina Bingham. So that's for book. Do I need to answer for music?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. One song that I would ask people to listen to. Oh my goodness. This is weird because I love, oh my God, how do you put me on the hot spot? One song I would love to, oh my God, this is so hard. I can't believe this is so hard. It's so, jeez. Okay. Maybe something by, oh my God, that's weird. Maybe an album by India Arie or Maxwell or, God, I probably would mention so many names. That's weird. Oh my God. Oh God, this is not fair. This is not fair, Dowdy. You put me on the hot spot now. This is a good one. This is a very good one. I'm never speechless. This is totally tough. Oh, jeez.
No, it's okay. At least you've given us some albums, so that should cover it pretty much. Yeah. So lastly, how can people connect with you? Obviously, you have a podcast. I'm sure there's some people who would like to listen to you more. And as I mentioned before we started recording, I listened to your most recent interview, and your guest was very, very emotional and very powerful. I really enjoyed it, and I'd encourage other people to listen to it because, as you said, it's a naked talk. People go deep down, and they talk about things that you normally wouldn't hear others talk about, all the insecurities, all the vulnerabilities there. So how can people find out about that podcast, as well as how can they get your book? How can they connect with you elsewhere on the internet?
Well, they can connect with me. The easiest way to connect with me is on my website. They can go to www.alexokoroji.me. They can connect with the blog there, the radio show, the book, everything. So if they go to Alex Okoroji, and Alex is AlexOkoroji.me as in ME, then, they can find out everything. I think that's the easiest place to go to, and they can connect with me on social media. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere as Alex Okoroji. I guess that's the easiest way.
Right. So once again, thank you, Alex, so much for joining us today on Business Mike and sharing your story. As always, we're very, very happy for you and excited to connect with you in the future.
Thank you so much, Dowdy, for having me on Business Mike. This has been such a pleasure talking to you, and I've been so excited. Yay! I'm in Uganda and all over the world. Thank you so much, Dowdy.
Thanks for listening to the Business Mike podcast. I hope you enjoyed the show. If you'd like to listen to more episodes just like this one, simply go to businessmike.com. I would love to hear from you. So if you've got any questions or feedback, you can reach me on Twitter at Dowdy Mugabe, on Facebook at Business Mike, or email. That's dowdy@businessmike.com. Don't forget, we have a brand new episode every Monday. And until then, take care.